Welcome back to Tech, Marry, Kill. This is a podcast about what we love about tech, what we hate about tech, and what in tech satisfies our temporary needs and desires. So, Aya, we have a lot of exciting things to talk about today. We are going to talk about Elon Musk suing Sam Altman. We're going to talk about some weird stuff that Sam Altman is up to. We're going to talk about taxing the rich. Am I missing anything?
I don't think you are. So let's start.
Let's dive right in. Aya, you want to take us into Elon Musk?
Yeah, so we are recording on Wednesday. And as we speak, Elon Musk is literally back on the witness stand in a federal courtroom in Oakland. He's suing Sam Altman. This is day 3, I believe. So, these two started OpenAI together back in 2015 and are now in court fighting over what that company is even allowed to be. Quick recap, super basic. OpenAI started as a nonprofit, as we all know. The whole pitch was, we build AI safely for everyone, no shareholders, no profit thing. And then a few years later, they kind of bolted a for-profit arm on top of it, and Microsoft put in $13 billion. The company is now worth, hundreds of billions. And Musk left the board in 2018, and basically he's saying, nope, the flip from charity to cash machine, that wasn't the deal. He wants Altman and the president, Greg Brockman, kicked out, and he wants $134 billion in what his lawyers call wrongful gains, pushed back into the original charity. And OpenAI's defense is also super simple. They're saying bro, you knew about this all along. You were in those conversations. You just lost the power struggle, and now you're just mad. So yeah, that's what this whole feud is about, and we're gonna keep you up to date when they're reaching a conclusion. So many people are saying Elon doesn't really have a chance to win this. I have no idea, but maybe you have heard a thing or two about this, or I don't know, maybe he does have a chance. We'll see.
Yeah, it feels like competition among billionaires because they have no one else to compete with. Because while you can agree that it's messed up that OpenAI and Sam Altman, it was at his direction that they were going to move away from being a nonprofit, where they had this mission of making AI to the benefit of humanity. Now they're doing contracts with the U.S. military, right? One of the most violent forces in the world. And Altman was nearly ousted through controversies partially caused by him moving away from this mission, right? And so Musk has been involved since the beginning, provided tens of millions in funding, so he can sort of say, this isn't what the money I invested was supposed to go to. But is a judge going to side with you in a case like this? Because so many corporations change and morph as time goes on, that I don't think they would want to set this kind of a precedent, even if there's this agreement that it was wrong of OpenAI to make this change. Law and justice are not the same, and even though it's wrong, that doesn't make Elon a good guy for pursuing it, but it also doesn't mean it's going to win out in court. I don't know, it feels like a weird PR stunt from Elon to me.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. There's something to it. I read that Elon was pushing, this was on Wired, he's having a nickname for Sam Altman. He's calling him Scam Altman. Musk paid to boost this. That's the thing on X. So you can pay extra to push a post into more feeds. He owns the platform, and he's basically just bullying him. He's literally using the algorithm of this company he owns to amplify this hit piece on the guy he's currently suing. So this is giving petty. This is giving his feelings are hurt. And yeah, feels like we're watching two billionaires have a catfight.
One of my favorite news items that came out of this is the judge has their hands full because trying to find a 9-person jury of people who have a neutral view of Elon or Sam Altman has proven a challenge. And I love that. I would love to be in the room hearing the voir dire of jury selection right now. It's probably such good content.
But it's also all for theater, isn't it?
Yeah.
these people, they're not going to decide. The judge is going to decide, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who
Well,
is this even for?
I actually don't know what the jury's role is. Not a lawyer, but the judge informed the court now. So it's a bit of a mess, but I don't know what the jury's ultimately going to decide on. If the jury sometimes decides on charges, I don't know how it works in California. Let's see.
Yeah, I believe you have other news with you too. Sam Altman bought something
Also,
again.
Yes. So maybe you've noticed that data storage, RAM, it's getting expensive, right? I have a friend who bought a hard drive not so long ago, and it's gone up in value over the last year, like 5-fold, which is insane. It's like the best investment in his portfolio, which is hilarious. But yeah, I've been talking to people a lot in the data science and computer space, the hacking space, and they're really mad that Sam Altman has decided to just buy up RAM. And he's bought so much RAM that estimates show reportedly up to 40% of the global supply. And that's as of late 2025. So, yes, he's building data centers. However, the expert opinion is that he is not putting all of this to use, that he is buying so much because he has the capital to just purchase it so that his competitors can't get their hands on it, and it's expensive for them. That's a crazy monopolistic move. Like, you shouldn't be able to do that.
You really shouldn't. Like, what can we expect from this? Like, are things going to get even more expensive now just because he bought that up? Is that his whole thing? And how long is he going to keep this up?
So, we've already seen huge inflation with the price of RAM. Everything is going up in the US, which, I mean, you could get conspiratorial and say, oh, they don't want us to have tech sovereignty. They don't want us to have our own computer builds that we can rely on to do similar processing. And instead, we have to purchase cloud storage and rely on data centers to get our work done. So it's hard for individuals. It's harder for small businesses to be able to afford this. That's just going to get worse. And I haven't heard of any sort of regulatory action around this, let alone politicians paying attention to it. Maybe they hasn't come across my desk. But I mean, this is a world where you have someone like John Fetterman overseeing the CHIPS Act while he's making unusual investments in chip manufacturers. This is a kind of regulatory environment we're in where it's just not happening. And so I don't know if we're going to see the US government intervene.
Gosh, I hope they do. I mean, I believe they're going to probably talk more about this once the prices like get more and more expensive for computers or like everything that we have to buy that's RAM connected. Yeah. Let me scratch that. Please scratch that. I don't know how to react to this. It's like a monopolist just being a monopolist. I hope what could be our hope here? That the government actually does its job and shows them some of the limits?
Yes, I think that it's hard to make the case for what these tech billionaires are doing when it comes to cloud capital, things that we can't see and touch and feel. But when it's hardware and the hoarding of resources and intentional scarcities created by one of the biggest companies in the space, that's an economic issue that I think feels more tangible for lawmakers. And so maybe it will be a gateway into people realizing that the motives of these geniuses developing AI are actually not so good, that it's really about market capture and making money more than it is ushering in a future where there's human progress and flourishing because we have these brilliant machines, right? That's like their weird fever dream that they have no path to get to. So that's kind of how I see it. It could be a good thing, right, that he chose to do this. Now people will see him for what he is because it's something we can actually hold.
Yeah, I hope that's what's going to happen soon. And we have other things we can talk about too. We can have taxes, right? Wealth tax is a thing that can be imposed on billionaires. And as I understand it, there's a ballot initiative there that has been bubbling for months, and that just cleared a huge hurdle. So a couple days ago, the same day Musk took the stand, by the way, the healthcare workers union announced they had collected 1.5 million signatures for what they're calling the Billionaire Tax Act. They only needed about 875,000. So they have definitely qualified, and that's going to be on the November ballot. So just to dive right in, what does this Billionaire Tax Act say? Do you know?
A vague understanding of it. 5% tax on individuals whose net worth exceeds $1 billion.
Yeah. Yes, that's basically it. So if your net worth is over $1 billion, you pay a one-time 5% tax on your fortune. You can spread that payment over 5 years. 90% of that money goes to healthcare, keeping hospitals and clinics open after the federal Medicaid cuts. The rest goes to public schools and food assistance. And some numbers, I have brought some numbers around it as well. So California has roughly around 200 billionaires. Together, they're sitting on about $2 trillion. The tax is projected to bring in around $100 billion over 5 years. What do you think of this tax?
I think it just makes sense. Like, this is nothing. 5%. I mean, most people who have $1 billion end up accumulating multiple billions of dollars because we're living in an economy where the rate of return on capital is faster than the rate of return on labor. So this kind of a tax keeps that in check. I think you should have to work for the money that you earn. Otherwise, you're not really earning it, right? So the Service Employees International Union is backing this. And people say, well, like, billionaires are the ones that create the jobs because they have the capital to invest in businesses and start new ones, right? So why would a union that represents workers support something like this? And I think it makes really clear for people that actually know billionaires are not job creators and they're making money off of workers. And it's like trickle-down economics, actually, when you tax them and use that money to invest in public services and things that everyone can benefit from, that actually grow the economy as a whole, things like education and better transportation. So it's just like common sense, good economic policy. And I think it should be higher than 5%, but I understand that this is what you can get power brokers to agree to as a start, and that's probably where the figure came from. But I do believe it's good that a union is supporting this and flipping that economic narrative that when we tax the rich, there's consequences for jobs for regular people. There's not.
What I don't understand, maybe you can explain it to me, is that when we're looking at the opposition here, it's basically the entire Democratic establishment in California, plus most of Silicon Valley, including Reid Hoffman, who called it horrendous for innovation, or Jensen Huang from NVIDIA. On the other hand, he said he's perfectly fine with it. So I don't know. There are very weird proponents for it who I would have thought would be against it, who I would have thought would be for this. Can you explain it to me? What is that all about?
I think they just are hoarding their money like dragons, really. That's how I see it, genuinely. Hurting innovation? No. How many people would have good ideas and be good inventors, but can never make it out of Oakland because their family is working hourly wage jobs? They don't know how to apply to college, and the school system's defunded to a degree where they have no hope of standing out and getting into college, let alone making it in an industry without the comfortability that growing up in a stable financial environment can provide. Like, if we tax the rich and invest in schools and give kids opportunities, we'll have more inventors. There's a study that was done on, they call it Lost Einsteins, of how many truly brilliant inventors we're losing, just statistically speaking, because of the extent of low social mobility in the United States. And I just don't hear the argument when they're like, oh, this is going to hurt innovation. Because what are they doing with their money? Investing in oil companies who are not spending anything on innovation. The energy sector is a huge sector where innovation is required so that we have sustainable energy and we're not relying on fossil fuels that literally destroy the planet. They're not investing in innovation. They're giving returns to their shareholders and prolonging the extraction of their existing oil supply without investing any capital on new rigs and wells, even when the economy needs it. And we're like in a crisis backing Ukraine in a war with Russia. So we haven't seen innovation happen. And like, is AI going to be the thing they say, oh, we're saving the world because we're investing in AI? We're not benefiting from it. There's countless studies from hedge funds showing that there isn't a return on productivity. And so I really think they're just hoarding their wealth like dragons, and they have no real reason to be against this.
Exactly. And the most interesting argument for a wealth tax I've heard this past week was the video you sent me. It wasn't from Bernie. It didn't come from Oxfam. It came from a tech bro podcast. I don't know, the All In podcast. I don't listen to this podcast, but if that clip came across your For You page, it was about like 4 very rich Silicon Valley investors talking. And I mean, generally these are not progressives. And one of them was David Friedberg. He's a founder who sold his company to Monsanto. He sits on Trump's Science Advisory Council now. And he basically came out and said, guys, I don't know. I feel like we should think about like introducing a wealth tax because maybe these people, I don't know, maybe these people are going to start a civil war if we don't do this, and they're going to become violent. And that's not what we want. And I had to laugh so hard. And it just comes to show that, hey, maybe just like this fear of all of these people becoming violent and protesting, that might have just turned these billionaires into people who are pro wealth tax.
Yeah, I love this story. To say it like it's a revelation, like, hey guys, I think we really need to think about this wealth tax thing because there are some people that have no assets. And it's like, yeah, the bottom 50% of the country owns like less than, I think, 5% of assets. They have no wealth, no savings. And that's unthinkable for these guys who live off of their assets. And they're like, for him to be in the gym and put himself in our shoes, who knows? Maybe he saw a janitor or someone and was like, what's his life? What does he go home to? What led to this epiphany? We'll always wonder. But he was like, wow, imagine having no wealth. Oh, I kind of get why they're so angry. Yeah, I would hurt people.
He explained it to his friends, like on the pod. He's like, guys, did you know that this is how it works? And like, I don't know. I was just at the gym. And then his friends don't even react to this wealth tax thingy he said. They were just asking about him being at the gym. Oh, you were lifting weights? And I was just like, what? Do they not hear how he's actually trying to like have a serious conversation with them? Yeah. Tech bro people having tech bro talks.
His moral epiphany is treated as some kind of lapse in judgment and comment that should be disregarded by the others. It's just amazing to watch, like watching zoo animals interact to see these guys have a conversation. But on the same note, the Five Guys CEO gave his employees like $1.5 million in bonuses because he said he didn't want to get shot like Luigi Mangione. So
now that's
they're gaining consciousness.
Let's talk briefly about Bernie Sanders here. I believe he also proposed different types of taxes to solve this problem, not just a wealth tax, but like a robo tax, right? Can you explain to me, is Bernie talking about this as like okay, cut the wealth tax because that's not going to be probable. Let's talk about the robo tax instead. Or is this something that he wants on top of each other? Or explain to me how this even came about.
Yeah, so Bernie is way more progressive when it comes to wealth taxes. He believes in a wealth cap. No one should have more than $1 billion. And this is a new policy he's come out with within the last 3 years. And so that's where he stands on how much wealth one person should control. And that's really about like democracy, because when someone has that much money, they can control elections and how elected officials act on certain issues with lobbying funds and so on. But when it comes to like the well-being of working people and just people who live within the American economy, I think he sees robots. And knowing Bernie, he probably is including computers in that category, but I think people in the tech space and the data space say robots are the machines doing physical tasks, whereas computers are things like AI, right? Both of these things are extremely productive. And there's a huge inequality when a small group of people control the computers and the robots that are doing economic production. And the rest of us are struggling to find work, forced into low-wage jobs, will never be able to own a data center or a factory. And so the robot tax is a way, when workers' jobs are replaced, to generate revenue for states and municipalities to provide public goods. There's like this famous interaction that economists say was in a Ford factory, where like the guy running the factory, I think he was the guy who inherited Ford, he said, "Oh, look at all these robots. Like one day they'll be making all of the cars." And they said, "Okay, but then who's going to buy the cars?" And that's the problem this deals with, is if we tax the productivity of the robots in a similar way to taxing workers' wages and redistribute that wealth and money, it sets some of that issue right. But it really is like a Band-Aid solution to an economy that's broken, but a necessary one if we're going to keep living like this.
And the title of like this 100-page thing that came out was pretty dramatic too. AI and automation could destroy nearly 100 million US jobs in a decade. And the way they came up with this, I'm just reading this. So they actually used GPT 4.1. They fed in 15,000 specific job tasks across 774 occupations and basically asked the model, hey, can you do this? The numbers that came back was that 89% of fast food jobs are automatable, 83% of customer service, 64% of accountants, and 47% of truck drivers. And yeah, 54% of software developers. I think if these people all lose their jobs, who's going to pay for the products that are going to come out with this, with the help of AI, or what these billionaires are like wanting to sell to us at least? How probable is it that something like that actually goes through? What are the specific steps that need to happen
for like a robot tax to pass?
Yeah.
I think there's going to have to be some negative consequences to AI replacing jobs, where like workers, including right-wing voters, are upset about what this has done to their livelihood, and they put pressure on politicians. But I think until we get to a point where there's like critical mass of anger about it, they're not going to do much. I think we all envision a world where the future is robots working for us and doing all of the boring, mundane tasks. Like, sure, the robots can drive a bunch of trucks and grill our burgers, but that should mean the rest of us get to spend more leisure time making art and spending quality time with our families. And that's just not the direction this is headed. It's headed towards a small group of people extracting more dollars from us who have to continue to pay for these services, and we never really see the benefit of an economy we helped create. Like, workers built these machines. We built these companies. So of course we should have a slice of the output, but it's not looking like that's going to happen. And so there is going to need to be, I think, some pressure on elected officials over this. We're also seeing a different kind of response where people are so angry that they're just lighting warehouses on fire, right? And that's getting little to no coverage, which is fascinating. But I mean, maybe that will make corporations realize, like the Five Guys CEO and Friedberg, that they don't want violence and they are inspired to sympathize with the regular working guy. And then they make a change. So maybe it'll come from elected officials, maybe it'll come from inside the companies, but I don't see this being sustainable. Like any other society, if we look at human history that's experienced this level of inequality and power, there's been a civil war. And that's just like basic history, anthropology. That's human behavior. And so I would like for us to avert it, and hopefully the powerful guys in Silicon Valley and Wall Street think so too.
Yeah, maybe our role is to amplify these voices of these people that are like super unhappy with the current situation. I don't want to say we should amplify the voices of everyone who wants to light up warehouses on fire, but if the result is that tech bros at the end of the day talk to their other tech bros and say, hey, I'm kind of scared of these people, I think that's one way to have a conversation. But let's just talk about this robotax for a minute, because the way I understand it, if you hire a person, the company pays a payroll tax, Social Security, Medicare, all that, and the state gets a slice of this paycheck. The employee gets a paycheck and they spend that paycheck in the economy, and then they pay income tax. That's the whole loop. And if you replace that person with an AI system or a robot, none of that happens. So there's no payroll tax. The state slice just disappears. And it gets worse even because the company actually gets a tax break for buying the robot. And there's a thing called accelerated depreciation, which basically means you can write off the cost of the machine super fast. So the tax code currently is paying companies to fire people. This is not metaphorically speaking. The tax math literally rewards automation over hiring. And the robot tax fixes this. But there are two ways, and I'm not sure what way would make sense, depending on the version. Either you tax the company directly when it replaces a worker with an AI system, kind of like a payroll tax for the machine, or you just remove the tax breaks the company gets for buying it. But I believe either way, it would rebalance the whole thing. Like the state would get its slice and the revenue goes into a fund whatsoever that pays for, I don't know, like retraining people who lose their jobs and for social safety net. But like either way, this would help a little bit, right?
Right. Yeah. Taxes have a huge incentive over like behavior. It just has to be a tax that is enforced that there isn't loopholes for, which is difficult because sometimes really good tax laws are passed, but then there's tax loopholes that are offered because some rich guy gets a group of his buddies to pass it at the state level, even if something good is done at the federal level. And they'll pass like a rebate. That's something that Mamdani in New York City has just proposed undoing is it's called the New York Pass-Through Entity Tax. And businesses in New York, this particularly impacts hedge funds who take advantage of it. They are getting 100% rebate on this specific kind of tax, and they're reducing that from 100% just to 75%. And that's going to generate $1 billion in revenue. So these loopholes are massive, and it's a ton of money that should be going to public goods, better schools, roads, everything that just we're missing out on because these loopholes have been created. But taxes are one of the best fiscal policies we have. Marriages, we notice in countries that slightly incentivize being married with a little bit of a tax break, see marriage numbers increase dramatically. And it's amazing how much that economic policy alone inspires people to make that big of a different life choice. But yeah, businesses currently are incentivized to favor machines over people. And I think that's a tax code that's written for lobbyists in Silicon Valley, honestly.
And it does need to be enforced in other countries as well. Like this needs international coordination. If this happens in the US and it doesn't happen in Germany, then we have a problem. But I believe just like the wealth tax too, we also have proponents here, like economists, philosophers, people who are really loud, that have put a bill on the table. When it comes to like European countries, we're also working on our tax codes, and I hope we can see some change here, because if not, then I do think there might be a civil war looming around the corner if people just don't get a break. Yeah, we need to have some type of social safety net. There's just too much pressure on all of us.
Yeah, it's not asking for a lot. Like one of the warehouse arsonists, allegedly, was filming a video saying all you had to do was pay us enough to live. And that's not asking for a lot from companies with billions of dollars in profit.
So I also have some numbers with me, of course. I'm going to quote Oxfam. They have put out a report 2026 in January. They told us that the global billionaire wealth is at $18.3 trillion at the moment. That's an all-time high, up 16% in a single year, 3 times faster than the average over the previous 5 years. The number of billionaires crossed 3,000 for the first time in history. That's like the world's 12 richest billionaires. 12 people own more wealth than the bottom 4 billion people on this planet combined. Half of humanity versus 12 guys. Someone in the top 1% owns over 8,000 times more wealth than someone in the bottom half of humanity. And since 2020, billionaire wealth is up 81%. In real terms, after inflation. Most of us got poorer in that exact time window because of inflation and rent. But they got 81% richer. And also the amount billionaires gained in 2025, just the gain, just 1 year, is about $2.5 trillion. That gain alone, according to Oxfam, is enough to end extreme poverty on the planet 26 times over. 26, not the underlying wealth. That's like the annual delta. Plus the political part, billionaires are 4,000 times more likely to hold political office than ordinary people. And as I mentioned, democracies are shrinking, autocracies are growing. So yeah, I believe that's the temperature Friedberger was referring to, and he was explaining to his bros. He's just reading it all in dollar signs and trying to.
I think like in the US, we talk so much about the 99% and the 1%, and we don't talk about the bottom half. And I think this is because they try to say that the United States is better than like the global standard, which couldn't be further from the truth. I was so curious about this because this is how like wealth inequality is assessed at the international level. But in the US, we only ever see like 1% versus 99%. And I looked into the bottom 50% in a Substack recently. The stock market, the bottom 50% owns 1.1% of US stock. 88% of US stocks are owned by just the top 10%. And if we look at like total assets and wealth, the bottom 50% own, it's actually much less than 5%. It's 2.4% of total wealth. This is insane.
That is insane.
Just unacceptable.
We need to be way more angry.
People assume revolutions are violent. No. Revolutions are just giving birth to something new. They don't need to mean the death of anything. So if people decide we're going to get together and give each other what corporations don't give us, we get employed by corporations and we're paid a wage, and then all of our friends and family and neighbors go and buy the thing we made from the corporation marked up. What if we just offered goods and services to each other? What if we bought land in a co-op and grew our own food and withdrew from the corporate imperialist takeover of our economy and created sovereign communities? I genuinely think withdrawing from the economy as much as possible and creating methods of communication that cannot be surveilled is the revolution. Like, that is the appropriate response right now. And there's no violence. It's just the system's already broken, so we should build one that actually works.
Mic drop, Jessica. That's exactly my point too. I talk about this in my keynotes as well. I do believe cooperatives can be a huge factor in the revolution, so to speak. I talk about different tech cooperatives too, because there are so many people who are just like, who have been doing this type of work for the past 10 years, of course. We also talked about this when I talked about the conference I went to, but just seeing more and more people being engaged in cooperative work and buying land together. Like a friend of mine just bought house together with 10 of his friends. And they're just like taking turns and spending their holidays there. I love seeing stuff like this. And that gives me so much hope. So, yeah, it doesn't have to always end in violence, dear Mr. Friedberg. This can be solved with taxes and with cooperative solutions.
Yeah, industries can restructure too. Like farmers here in Iowa, pigs, pork, it's our big thing. They are struggling. Not only because like fertilizer is more expensive because of the war in Iran and a lot of them grow food to feed the pigs, but there's all of these agreements of like who's going to process the meat at the meat packing plant, who's going to ship it, who's the distributor. There are so many people you have to pay and it gets shipped all around the country. But what if a local farmer that owns a family farm and has for a while says, our current co-op system's not working. So a lot of them are co-ops, but then the corporations get their tentacles in there and make it a raw deal for the actual farmers. What if they just got a list and people pay for their pork in advance at the beginning of the season? Then they have a set amount of money, an operating budget to work on to grow the food and deliver it.
So that's basically a loan from
Customers.
the consumers, right? Instead of the bank. And that's how they can work. Yeah.
Buy your pigs direct, America.
Like this is a trend that we should be talking more about. I'm going to see if I can find more about this. Maybe we can talk about this in more detail, like some of these different financing models, so to speak, for companies, because I looked into a couple of these, with or without private equity, with or without VC. There are so many ways we can think about financing the revolution. So, yeah, maybe that's a different topic.
Yeah, maybe we'll get to do an episode on that because there is a role that tech has in this. Maybe that can be a Mary. We'll finally have a really good Mary. Our Marys are always kind of forced. They're always like, well, this isn't about tech. This is actually about us. We're going to marry the organizers organizing against tech.
What's your kill?
My kill is going to be, there's so many to choose from always. Maybe it's just Sam Altman moving away from the mission he founded OpenAI on. Like, even though I don't think this lawsuit's going to go his way or Elon has the right intentions, I do think it's wrong that he did that. So yeah, that's my kill, is using AI for profit instead of the benefit of humanity.
I think that's a great kill. Scam Altman. I'm going to take that with me. I'm going to say that. Scam Altman. Okay, no. Thank you so much for all of your insights. We can link to your Substack article, the one that you mentioned, where you looked into the 50%. And yeah, we will, I don't know, let's not talk about anything.
I will say one last thing.
Oh, yeah, okay.
A story that is developing that I think we'll be able to talk about in more detail the next episode, but I just want our viewers to have their eyes on it, or listeners. FISA, which is like a federal bill around surveillance permissions. It did not pass, but the Republicans are trying to get enough votes on it, and the way they've done it is they've attached to the bill prohibiting the Federal Reserve from having a central digital currency in America. This is not a cryptocurrency. It is a digital currency for the US dollar. Republicans don't like this. They think it's a way for the government to surveil transactions, which our financial infrastructure already allows to a meaningful degree. And so this is a really interesting development that this is being attached to the surveillance bill to get more people to vote for warrantless surveillance of American citizens. So we'll keep our eyes on that. Yeah.
Wait, maybe it does have to do with the conversation we're having here in Europe too about the digital euro. I'm going to look into this. Maybe that is connected, and we can most definitely talk about this next time.
Yeah, it's one of those things. If it's implemented well, it's a good policy. If it's implemented poorly, it's a bad policy.
Yeah. Thank you for that cliffhanger.
Yeah. So subscribe so you get our next episode.
Yes. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts. I hope you have a great day. I hope Scam Altman has a horrible day, and see you soon.
Bye, Scam Altman.